The name Ethan Couch. Oh, Ethan Couch, the affluenza teen D-bag, sentenced to almost 2 years in jail for an OBI fatal that killed 4 people, another 2 seriously injured. This case caught national attention because the judge in juvenile court seemingly slapped him on the wrist for this and gave him probation, and which he then promptly, after being discovered drinking alcohol, violating the probation, fled to Mexico. He's a criminal defense attorney. Scott Palmer joins me this morning on the Scott Sloan Show here, 700 WLW, to talk about this. Good morning, Scott. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Everything's good. Thank you. So, Ethan Couch, he's 16 years old. He's drinking, not the first time, gets in a pickup truck, has some friends in the back, and tragedy occurs. He's driving. He hits 4 pedestrians on a road in Texas back in 2013. He hits a parked car. The parked car then slides in another vehicle head on. 2 people in the bed of the truck are tossed. They're injured. You got 4 dead. And one of them has a brain injury, one of the survivors. A psychologist during trial said that Couch was a victim of what was termed affluenza because he was raised by himself, essentially raised himself. He had wealthy, privileged parents, never set any boundaries or limits for him, and so he got 10 years probation. Despite prosecutors asking for 20 years behind bars. America, after this, was outraged that he got off too easy. However, as a criminal defense attorney, Scott Palmer, for a first-time juvenile offender, was that unusual?
It's not unusual for a first-time juvenile offender. However, the magnitude and the carnage that he unleashed on these innocent folks did command, prison. I think that a lot of people figured that probation shouldn't have even been on the table. The whole affluenza defense was sort of carved out of the psychologist's remarks, and it was not really it wasn't planned by the criminal defense attorney. So I think they were as shocked as anyone that the judge gave him the probation. They certainly argued for him, and they had great lawyers, and they got him what they were hired to do. But the outrage that this brought on has been the issue.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're a criminal defense attorney. You would defend people like him, and you are even shocked by the fact he got 10 years probation.
Yeah, I mean, I am a criminal defense attorney, and I have had cases similar to this, but obviously not this bad. But the idea that he didn't know right from wrong because he had too much money or didn't have enough love, it's never been raised before, and it'll never be raised again. I haven't seen it since this case has gotten so much attention. And then the fact that, of course, he runs to Mexico and sort of blows off his probation just sort of added insult to injury to these families of these victims and the system in general. So when he was in court on Monday for his first appearance on his adult probation, the judge did what we kind of expected him to do, which he gave him 180 days for each of the 4 victims of the 4 counts of intoxication manslaughter. This is a condition of his probation. This is not a violation of his probation. So this is a way to start off his probation, doing 2 years in jail, day for day, with no credit if he ever gets revoked. And, of course, the judge has sort of left a window of opportunity for his lawyers to argue that it's too much time. So we'll see what happens in that.
Yeah, he could be looking a lot. Well, and you mentioned, too, last year video surfaces of him drinking alcohol, which violates his probation very clearly. Before he's even hauled into court, he flees to Mexico with his mother. Why doesn't he have to serve his full term? If you violate probation, they say, okay, you violate, we're going to throw you in jail for the full time, which he did, but they didn't in this case. What happened?
Well, what they did is they extradited him back, and then they, instead of violating his probation, they transferred him to adult court. And since he hadn't committed the offense or the probation violation while he was on adult court, the juvenile system sort of actually gave up on him, and they transferred him, and they're going to let the adult system handle it. It's a little bit of an intricate tweak in the law, but he essentially escapes his violation by getting transferred to adult court, and now he starts over on a clean slate. Yeah, but a lot of people think that his 2 years that he got yesterday was a violation. You can probably chalk it up to the fact that he ran, but there was no motion to revoke his probation pending before the court yesterday. That is, the 180 days times 4 is a tool that all judges in Texas have to, as a condition of your probation, you're going to serve some jail time. They don't have to use it all at the same time. They could 30 days here and 30 days during Christmas time or Thanksgiving or around holidays or the victims' birthdays, those type of things. And I've seen judges do that. What he did is he said, I'm going to give you 180 days, and then when you're done with that, there's 3 more stretches of 180 days, which of course is 2 years.
Okay. So on that note, too, so what you're saying is he was 16 when this occurred. He's a juvenile. He's in juvenile court. He violates his probation, but while he turns 19 in Mexico, or he's 19 now, he became an adult past the age of 18 while he was in Mexico.
Right.
So then when they extradited him, they had to charge him as an adult. So there's no carryover between juvenile probation and adult probation. It kind of is a reset. But if that's the case, though, because she got, oh my God, I can't believe these idiots fled to Mexico, which I initially thought. But the way you just described it, Scott Palmer, because these people are rich, because they are wealthy and they're connected, they have the best of the best attorneys. Do you think that was a strategy that they, hey, listen, we flee and hang out in Mexico until he turns of adult age? Guess what? All this other stuff goes away. So we just got to be on the lam until he turns to be an adult.
That was one theory that was thrown around, that they were just going to wait and buy this time, but I think it backfired. I mean, ultimately, that, you know, he actually has been in jail since, I believe, January 26th when they brought him back from Mexico. So he's, all this time that he's been in jail doesn't count towards the 180 days. So it backfired. He did turn 19 on Monday. That's when the adult court took over. The juvenile court, of course, granted that jurisdiction months ago. So he now buys himself 3 months plus 2 years. So if that was the strategy, it didn't work. The lawyers, told him, don't run. If he had just stayed in place and done what he was supposed to do, he may never be looking at these 2 years right now. We don't know that, but that's not the way this unfolded. But the judge has the power. He gave it to him. He's given a little bit of a hint that he may reconsider his ruling. I think the public doesn't want him to do that, but he started off the probation with a pretty strict heavy hammer, saying you're going to start your probation, and we'll see you in a couple of years when you're 21. And then, of course, that'll be 2 years on probation while he sits in jail.
No, I can't.
We'll see if that sticks.
I can't believe that he's going to mature all that much. Attorney Scott Palmer on the show this morning on 700 WOW and the Ethan Couch affluenza trial. Now that he's back, and now it's making headlines once again. Sentenced to 2 years in jail, almost not quite 2 years in jail for that OVI fatal in Texas back 3 years ago. He's spending some time at solitary confinement at Supermax prison for his own protection, and I believe, to answer the question, what's the cure for what is the cure for affluenza? I think solitary in a Supermax pretty much may do it.
Yeah, I think that he's going to have a lot of time to think about his past transgressions and what he wants to do with his life in the future. There's 23 hours a day to kind of think about what your behavior was and how you got here, and hopefully he'll get the message and start behaving like a mature young adult at 21. He'll turn 21 in prison, it looks like, or in jail, unless the judge reconsiders and lets him out. We'll see. And
but that's a reality, though. Sitting in, you go from doing whatever you want when you want it. You got unlimited funds in order to do those things at a young age. It's a dangerous and lethal combination, as we saw. But when you're sitting in a jumpsuit in a cell for 23 hours a day with no one but the own voices in your head, that is going to cause him some serious. It'll probably ruin the kid. I'm guessing too. It probably put him in solitary for his own protection, right? Protective custody.
That's what the sheriff said yesterday, is that it's for his own safety. I don't think it's being punitive, but, you can chalk it up to whatever you want. There's a lot of people that want a piece of him, I think, in jail, and because of his attitude and the way he's behaved. But, I think he's going to have a cool reflection, and maybe he'll surprise everybody and actually finish his probation and be successful. We'll see.
I bet you beer that's not going to happen. I think that behavior is so ingrained in the kid, and I blame more the parents than I do him. I mean, okay, you're 16 years old, you're drinking and driving. It's a stupid thing, but look at the enablement that happened his whole life. I mean, for example, his mother fled with him to Mexico and was buying him strippers, for God's sakes. What kind of time is she facing for essentially aiding and abetting his flee to Mexico?
That is a whole different discussion, and my research case about, because she helped him leave and he was a fugitive, is actually that she may actually get off on that situation, only because she did not help him commit a new offense. So what she helped him do was flee the jurisdiction. He was already on probation. Another legal technicality in Texas, because you can't help a fugitive leave the jurisdiction unless they commit a new offense, a new crime. If he didn't commit a new crime, he violated his probation.
That's kind of a bad law. Doesn't something need tweaking there?
They probably will. The legislature will probably revisit.
Holy smokes!
It's not. Yeah, she hasn't even been indicted yet. So if she doesn't get indicted, or she gets indicted and gets guilty, there will be more outrage and there will be more dissension. And I believe the legislature does something to change the that law. But this is case law, and this has been, on the books for 20 years in Texas. So we'll see what happens with that. But I fear that she gets off on that situation.
Don't you wish there was a law where the parents could, for things like this, so grievous as this is, be held accountable for the actions of their kids? Kids do stupid things, make mistakes, but this one is so heinous and so premeditated and go on for so long. It's almost like you want to, the sentence would be forced sterility so she can never repeat this stupidity again.
Yeah, well, that's a discussion for.
That's a constitutional issue.
Yeah, it's a little bit. That's a gray area.
I'm down for that. I say take the ovaries. Final question for you, counselor. Many said during this thing he gets a slap on the wrist, he gets 10 years probation, he violates, and now he gets less than 2 years for killing 4 people. And people say, here we go again. If this were a black, if this were a Hispanic kid, they would have gotten life at the get-go. Do you agree with that?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion in Texas recently of another comparison case where a young Hispanic young kid who killed 2 people, a mother and her daughter, in a similar situation, and he got 20 years. And the whole idea that he was Hispanic and not as affluent, didn't have any money, had a court-appointed lawyer, that type of thing has been discussed. And I'm not going to say there's not a certain impact that may have happened in this situation. He had good lawyers. He had a psychologist. They had the argument. And the judge bought it. Now, if this is a one-off deal because the judge was – no, we weren't in the hearing. I wasn't part of the record. I don't know what else was said, but there's obviously deep thought into her decision. She's been defending her decision since she stepped down from this. But, yeah, I mean, I think that if he were black or Hispanic, that he probably would not be sitting here talking about this. He would have gotten a prison sentence, and this would have been a case that would have been over and done with. But
well, we know that minority groups, obviously, when it comes to amassing wealth and money, do far less than other groups. However, I will say this. I think the color that matters here is not brown, it's not black, it's not white. The color that matters is green. And it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, I think as we just got through watching the People versus O.J. Simpson, and I'm sure, Counselor, you watch this as well, it's fantastic, is that we learned, and we thought initially it was a black versus white issue, but upon further review, as the referees would say, it came to the issue of money, that he could afford exceptional counsel, and that's what got a guy who essentially murdered his wife and a companion, got him off of that charge. It was not the skin color, it was the money.
There's certainly a argument that you're making, and of course I agree. I mean, O.J. Simpson had the dream team, as they coined themselves, and there was a long battle. There was a lot of, that trial lasted 4 months. And, that is a whole issue that, socioeconomics versus race. And I hear you, and I agree that O.J. Simpson may have bought himself the best defense.
Sure. Johnny Cochran was brilliant, the way he played the racial overtones of the LAPD. And that's why Johnny Cochran and that's why the counselors that he had were hired, because they came up with this unique presentation to basically deflect every bit of scientific evidence the prosecution, the state had, and it worked brilliantly. It was a brilliant strategy. But if I were busted or someone who looked like me, the same amount of means, I couldn't afford that kind of counsel. And chances are I'd be convicted for a crime he got off of because he had more money. Same as the case with Ethan Couch.
It is a sad state of affairs when money drives justice, and I agree with you, and you're right. And people that are in prison that shouldn't be in prison because they had bad counsel, and then there's people that should be in prison that aren't because they had great counsel. It doesn't make sense, but that's the way the system works.
Unfortunately, that's the way it is because it's America, and money wins above all else. Appreciate the time and the insight. Scott Palmer, attorney at law. Thanks again.
My pleasure.